most of my time is consumed helping or mentoring people with cancer to get them onto the road of health and recovery. And I'm having incredible success there. I've mentored over 100 people now, and every single person, without exception, who's followed my advice to the letter has made either a complete recovery or they're on their way to recovery.
So are you a cancer survivor yourself then?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Wow.
That's what makes me more qualified than anything, that in the space of 13 months, I made a 100% recovery. And I cannot get recovery again, cancer again. It's not possible, because I now know what caused it, and I know how to treat myself, how to look after myself so that it cannot come back. This isn't magic, and it's not a miracle. If you're unfamiliar with this stuff, it seems like magic, it seems like a miracle, it seems weird, but it's not. It's just science. It's real science, not corporate science designed to bring profits for drug companies.
Yeah. This is the Hey Ed YouTube channel, and I am your host, moderator, and all-around nice guy, Edward Anderson. And today I've got a fascinating interview for my audience out there. I think you're really going to enjoy this. I hope you get your cup of coffee, turn off your cell phone, and enjoy this conversation. It's a little bit off the beaten path, which, as you know by now, I like to do. I like to bring you some interviews of interesting people that might not have met otherwise. So today we're talking to a gentleman out of Australia named Rob Pryor, and he is an author, a cancer survivor, and he helps many other people in their struggles and in their efforts to improve their health and their lives. I think that's accurate to say. Let me introduce Rob Pryor in Sydney, Australia. Hey, Rob, how you doing?
Doing great, Ed. Doing great.
Great to meet you finally. You know, I've been looking forward to this conversation for about a month now. We've been introduced by a mutual friend, Mario Bex, and I've really been looking forward to this. So thank you very much for being on the channel.
It's a pleasure.
Now, in addition to everything else, you are a published author of a very popular book that I really think is important for people to know about. You want to tell us a little bit about your book? Maybe show it for the audience so they can.
So I'm the author of this book, The Healing Power of Cancer. It was released, the first edition came out earlier this year and sold out in a flash like hotcakes. So then I created a second edition. It sold out in a flash, and now we're on to our third edition.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, you know, first of all, it's a very compelling, title. It's already a page turner. I can't wait to read it. So
some people think that the title is an error. And they try and help me. They say, Rob, we think you made an error there. The healing power of cancer. Cancer doesn't heal people, it kills people. And I say, no, it's not an error. No, I'm saying that if you go down the path that I'm advocating, cancer can actually, not only can you recover from cancer, but you can become a better person in mind, body, and spirit, which is what happened to me. I'm in better mental, physical, spiritual, if you like, emotional health than before I got sick. But it depends which road you go down.
So talk a little bit about your inspiration for writing the book.
January 2013, I was diagnosed with late stage 3 kidney cancer and also very badly damaged liver. And so I, first of all, considered modern medicine. It's called allopathic medicine. They were recommending surgery in the week after the diagnosis, so it was all happening very quickly. But I just wanted to look into naturopathic healing, or holistic healing, if you like, to see what it had to offer. And when I really looked into it and considered it and used my scientific background, because I do have a degree in science, I came to the conclusion that it was a better option, or at least worth trying. And so I started to educate myself, met some amazing people, astonishing people with astonishing knowledge and a tremendous track record. People who cured thousands of people using herbs and vegetables and juicing, and it's a long list. That's the tip of the iceberg, which we can come to if you wish. But I met these great, wonderful, inspirational people who I trusted. And as I followed their guidance, my health just got better and better, week to week, month to month. And I thought I could tell that it was working. And within the space of 13 months, I've made a complete recovery.
I'm wondering, why isn't this approach, widely known about? Because you never hear about it. What I'm hearing coming from you is kind of revolutionary.
Well, yes and no. There are people and many American authors and speakers who are talking about this. I'm not the only one. But many of them, they're not cancer survivors, so they're not talking from their personal experience, where my book tells a story. It's easy to read because it takes you month by month, week by week, day by day, through the people I met, the conversations we had. So people are telling me that they're finding it very entertaining to read. It's a page turner, but it's not a heavy scientific book. However, it does have science woven through it. That whenever I make a claim, I back it up using my scientific background as to why I believe it to be true. But it's not just some wild hippie claim. There's science behind all this. It's actually real hardcore science of biology, chemistry, physics, and there's even psychology, which used to be considered soft science, but people like Bruce Lipton, American author and speaker, Dr. Bruce Lipton, who wrote a wonderful best-selling book called The Biology of Belief, is now saying that the psychological and emotional components impact upon the body in a big way. And in fact, negative, fearful thoughts will create illness and will thwart healing, and positive, optimistic thoughts and loving thoughts will create wellness and healing. So he's come to that conclusion through extensive studies at Stanford University. So again, these are not just wild claims. It's all coming together. We're at a point in history where a lot of stuff that was suppressed is now rising to the surface and becoming slowly, but at an increasing rate, more well-known. When you say, this is revolutionary, this is new, that actually, before the year 1910, for thousands and thousands of years, there were what I call natural healers, particularly across the United States, thousands, tens of thousands of them, doing a fabulous job of curing people of cancer. When I say curing, I don't mean putting them into remission. I mean permanent, complete cure where it does not come back. People like Harry Hoxsey was a brilliant healer and advocated juicing and all sorts of herbs. There was a Canadian nurse called Renee Case who had a herbal mixture of half a dozen or so herbs, particular herbs which have cancer-fighting properties. And thousands of cancer patients were flocking to her in Canada, including from the United States. They were crossing the border, traveling huge distances, thinking, we want to meet this woman, we're desperate, we've got to try anything. And they'd drink her herbal teas, which is part of my secret, by the way. Particular herbs have healing properties. So I didn't have her exact concoction, but I had a concoction recommended to me by a local healer called Pete Melov. And anyway, within a couple of weeks to a month, they'd go back and visit Renee again and say, it's working. I'm feeling better. I'm more energetic. My tumor's shrinking. It's a miracle. And she'd say, I'm happy for you. She probably would have said, it's not a miracle, it's science, that these herbs have these healing properties, because Mother Nature is very benevolent and very brilliant. Are you a Christian or a religious person, Ed? Yeah. Well, you might say God protects us. God has provided everything we need to be safe and happy and prosperous if we care to look for it. I'm not Christian per se, but I do embrace a lot of the Christian values. Anything that promotes love and compassion and kindness, I'm in favor of. And respect for yourself and respect for others. So there were these brilliant healers and many, many others doing a fabulous job until about 1910.
Okay, let me ask you about your particular story. Let's circle back a little bit. So you had stage 3 cancer.
Yeah.
Was it kidney cancer, you said?
Correct.
Okay.
And a very badly damaged liver.
Okay, and how soon, once you started this new protocol, because you said that you're talking about they wanted you in surgery next week.
Yeah.
But you went down a different path. How long did it take you to see some actual?
Do you know, honestly, within 1 week of adopting the protocols of this fellow, Pete Melov, who owns and runs an organic produce store, but he's more of a healer than a greengrocer, believe it or not. Very unusual fellow. Within 1 week of following his protocols, I felt much better. Within 1 week, that a lot of my nausea and headaches had disappeared. The swelling under my ears had diminished. The swelling under the arms was starting to diminish. Various rashes and lumps were starting to diminish. That might have taken a bit longer, but even within 1 week, I felt better. I was starting to feel like a human being again. And then within a month, I felt much better. Within 3 months, I really knew that I was just hurtling towards recovery. It was just so obvious. And people would say to me, Rob, you look amazing. I'd say, thank you. They said, but we thought you were ill. And I said, well, I was, but I'm healing myself week by week. And they said, what are you doing, chemo or surgery or radiotherapy? I said, none of the above. Not at all, no. I came to the conclusion that I think those methods are dangerous and ineffective. So I've taken this naturopathic healing path. And some of them would say, well, we're skeptical because it's hard to believe that could actually cure something as nasty and virulent and aggressive as cancer. But looking at you, certainly every time we see you, you're looking more healthy. So there's something going on. It's hard to be skeptical when we see what's happening to you.
So I'm curious.
And now we're 10 years down the track. So we're well past the medical profession's 5-year benchmark. I'm in January next year, that'll be 10 years since diagnosis.
Wow. So I'm curious, are the protocols you're following, are they generic? Would they work for any types of cancer, or are there specific protocols for certain types of cancers?
I strongly suspect that these protocols would work for any type of cancer because it's a holistic approach. And the things that I did, some of them put natural substances, natural chemicals into your bloodstream. And of course, we know that the blood goes to every part of the body. So, you don't need, modern medicine is very mechanistic. It says, right, Mr. Pryor, there's this massive 6.5 centimeter tumor in your kidney. We recommend cutting it out as soon as possible. Your life's in danger here. And many people will fall for that, I believe. Well, obviously we know that, but it seems on the surface, when you first look at it superficially, seems like a good way to go. But, I've got a very lateral way of thinking. I think outside the square, and I thought, okay, that is a possibility that's open to me. It's not going to go away. But my initial reaction was, I don't really want someone to cut me open. I've never had surgery. I've never spent a day in hospital. The only time I've gone to hospital is to visit friends or family that are sick, not because I've been sick in hospital. And I thought, that's the way I like it. I don't want surgery. And in fact, the co-author of the first book that I wrote, who's a psychotherapist by the name of Michael Adamides here in Sydney, Australia, said to me, don't do the surgery. He said, it's very invasive, it's very brutal, and you may never fully recover from it. They'll tell you recover, but you've got 2 kidneys for a very good reason. We need 2 kidneys. You might find that your health will struggle for the rest of your life if you get this kidney removed. Well, that scared me. And then he said, well, I know an integrative doctor on the other side of town, Dr. Chris, who works in the same building as where I do my psychotherapy, and he's got a very good track record of curing people with cancer. This is before I met this other guy, Pete, by the way. It's a good 3 months before I met Pete. And I said, well, that sounds interesting. So I went there on the same day that I had the diagnosis from the specialist. Things are moving very fast. And he impressed me. There's many people he claimed he'd cured of every type of cancer you can think of: prostate, brain tumor, kidneys, liver, breast cancer, ovarian cancer, bladder, you name it, and pancreatic, which is believed to be the worst of the worst. But there was a particular woman who at that point was in her early 40s. She'd now be in her early 50s because we're 10 years down the track. She had pancreatic cancer, but she'd followed the Gerson therapy. There's the other name I was looking for, Max Gerson, brilliant American healer who was advocating juicing, particularly vegetable juices, and enemas, colonic hydrotherapy, where you clean out the gut, and saunas. And these are a lot of the things that I did. But I was recommended to do far infrared saunas, which penetrate deeper into the body. So it's actually a long list of things I did. If you're interested at any point, there's one page in my book which has got the 10 keys to my recovery. There's actually 10 things to it. So sometimes I hear people that said, well, I had a friend who did what you did and they died. And then I'll say to them, well, what did they do? Well, they did the juicing and the organic diet. I'll say, is that it? And I'll say, well, I'm not sure. I don't know. I think that's it. And then I'll say, did they detoxify with zeolite, bentonite clay, diatomaceous earth? Did they take MSM? Did they do far infrared saunas and colonic hydrotherapies 2 or 3 times a week? And then that person who's made the claim will often go silent and say, And then they'll say, gee, I don't know, probably not. I'll say, exactly. I'm not trying to attack you. I'm just saying they didn't go far enough. I do believe this is the right way to go, but you can't do it on a casual sort of basis. Oh, I'm going to cut out the processed foods. I'm going to cut out the sugar, which, by the way, are brilliant things to do. You can't just do a few superficial things like that. You've got to go the full hog. The analogy that I often use, this is a very long answer to your question because people call me a motor mouth. You think the Americans are motor mouths. Well, wait till you hear me.
I love it.
So the analogy I often like to use is I've been tutoring, believe it or not, mathematics to high school students for 48 years, almost 50 years. And some of them will come to me and say, I studied for that last test, but I still failed. And then I'll say, well, clearly you didn't study hard enough. And I say, oh, I don't think study works. And I'll say, no, study definitely works. What are you talking about? And I'll say, well, I studied really hard. And then I'll start to probe a bit deeper by asking questions like, did you do past exam papers from your school or from the Board of Studies? And they'll say, well, not really. And I'll say, and they'll say, oh, maybe I did one. And I'll say, did you do it under exam conditions with the time limits? And I'll say, well, not exactly. I did it in 3 segments, 3 sections. I'll say, well, study does work, but you've got to learn to step it up and do the right things. Did you make summary pages of all the important formulas that are going to be useful in the exam? Oh, not really, but I read over the textbook. Well, that's a bit passive. You've got to be a bit more active. You've got to ask yourself, what's the formula for this without looking it up? I encourage them to make flashcards. So we're getting very specific here, but it's because they haven't gone far enough. And I really went the full hog. Once I thought I had a lot of protocols, I'd be asking, particularly Pete Meloff, what else can I do? And then he'd say, well, have you done the diatomaceous earth? Not really. Tell me what that's about. Well, it detoxifies your body from bacteria, viruses, fungal infections, heavy metals, pesticides, herbicides. It rips them out of your gut, and then you eliminate them when you go to the toilet. I say, that sounds amazing. He said, it is amazing. So I'd say, well, that's my next protocol. I'm going to add that to the repertoire. So I just keep adding to it and adding to it. And then he was quite a tough taskmaster. He'd say to me, I told you to spend 30 minutes every day in the sun, and looking at your skin, you're not doing that. So, no greengrocer would ever say that. That's so unusual. Yeah. And I'd say, you're right, I'm just too busy. He said, don't make excuses. I'd say, yep, okay, it's an excuse. He said, just do it, Rob. You're serious about this, and you're an educated guy, and you got to add that extra element. So I'd do that, and then he'd say, you're not exercising enough. I said, how would you know that? He said, I can just tell, looking at your body and your vibe and your aura and the look in your eyes. You've got to get down, you've got to run, you've got to swim, whatever you like. For me, it was power walking, jogging, and swimming at Bondi, the world famous Bondi Beach. So he kept pushing me. He was like an Olympic trainer, but a tough taskmaster. He kept pushing me, but I kept pushing myself too. And there are other people that he was mentoring who had cancer and other illnesses. The ones who were taking it seriously, you could see, I'd meet them when I least expected to go in to have an organic meal, because it was also a cafe. And I talked to them for hours on end. And the ones who were taking it seriously, their health was getting better and better and better. The ones who weren't taking it seriously or didn't have enough knowledge, you could see they were struggling. So you really got to go the full hog with this. You can't be half-assed about it.
Okay, I'm glad you mentioned exercise. So it isn't just a matter of changing your diet and having proper nutrition.
Correct.
There's more to it than just that.
Correct. If you want a summary, I could read that page.
I like to give credit where credit is due. So I will order the book on Amazon and I'll read it for myself.
Not available on Amazon.
We don't want to give our audience. We don't want to give our audience too much of a freebie. They can order the book.
Fair enough. Not available on Amazon. Only available on my website,
which is
healingpowerofcancer.com.
Thank you. And we'll repeat that at the end of the interview. And I'll make sure to have a link of that in the description below. I also want to circle back to, I want to bring home, I keep thinking about this point. Is this just for cancer, or does it address other health issues, the protocols that you're following?
It addresses many other health issues. Again, you don't want to give away too much. I'm probably more generous about it. On page 112 of the book, I've got a list of probably a dozen or more serious illnesses, which the protocols will also address and I believe heal. Because, I met a woman with Lyme disease from South America, from Colombia, who had been to all the doctors, tried all the medicines with minimal effect. Sometimes they'd have a temporary effect, but then they weren't treating the root cause, and the illness would come back. And it's a very nasty illness, Lyme disease, by the way. And then, like me, she stumbled across this guy, Pete Melov, and got onto his protocols. And again, she told me her health just got better and better week by week. By the time I met her, she said her health, she'd put it at about 95 to 98% recovery. She said most days are good days. Occasionally, there's a bit of an issue, but she said she's reclaimed her life. She's got her energy. She's back at work, and she's just feeling great about life again. At one point, she was actually suicidal. Those thoughts have gone. It was so bad at one point. My sister, Susan, had fibromyalgia, another very nasty illnesses. By the way, all these illnesses, I believe, are parasitic infections. And I believe cancer is a parasitic infection, not what we've been told by modern medicine. And we can talk about Dr. Tullio Simoncini if you want to talk about that. That's another story. This woman, my sister, sorry, was fibromyalgia. The family, she lives in Queensland, which is a different state to the rest of us. We're in New South Wales, further south. And we didn't know she was ill. But when I found out she was ill, this was after my cancer recovery, well after it, a couple of years after it. I said, well, have you tried juicing? She said, I've never heard of it. I've got no idea what it is. I said, well, if you drink green juices, particularly, you know, celery and kale and lettuce and cucumber, anything that's green, avocados, with, you know, a bit of lemon and a bit of salt, and it cleans out your gut, which then boosts your immune system, because 75% of your immune system is in your gut. Once your immune system is firing on all cylinders, your cytotoxic T cells in your white blood, we're getting very technical here, will fight off any infection, whether it's fibromyalgia in your case, Lyme disease, in my case it was cancer. I've got a list here of other diseases it will cure. I am going to read them. I don't mind giving this away.
Okay.
These protocols will heal, or I believe even completely cure, if you're serious enough about it, colds, flus, tonsillitis, bronchitis, leaky gut, athlete's foot, ringworm, psoriasis, lupus, shingles, dandruff, allergies, Lyme disease, fibromyalgia, Crohn's disease, and arthritis. Because it all comes back to what Hippocrates, the ancient Greek father of medicine, said: all illness begins in the gut. When your gut health is depleted, you're in big trouble, and a whole myriad of illnesses can erupt. When you remedy that, you fix your gut health, which is what I did, one of the main things I did, then the body will start to heal itself. It goes into healing mode. And I'm not the only one saying this. There are millions of people who are starting to subscribe to this. And it's ancient wisdom, which is coming back, which I think was suppressed for a long time.
Is there any room for having cheat days?
In my case, no.
Okay.
The receptionist at the integrative clinic, as I was paying my bill and about to leave, said to me, lovely lady, said she recommended the 80-20 rule, which is 80% good stuff. You're talking about the good diet, healthy food, and 20% cheating, naughty stuff. And I thought about it, and I thought, no, I'm hell-bent on recovering. I'm going to do this thing come hell or high water. I'm not going to die. Some people say, oh, well, when your time has come, your time has come. I thought, to hell with that. I'm not going to, no, my time has not come. You know, I was only 54 at that time. I'm now 65. I thought, I've got a lot of living to do. I am not going to die. I'm going to solve this mystery. I'm going to solve this mathematical problem, if you like. Remember I said there's a connection between the mathematics that I've been tutoring and then my health recovery? It gave me the ability to think logically of A leads to B, leads to C, leads to D. So healthy diet, A, leads to B, gut health, leads to C, superb, strong, powerful immune system, leads to D, health and recovery. So my logical mind could piece that together, whereas I think some people, and this is not a criticism, and I'm not being judgmental, because they don't have that scientific background, they can't figure out. In fact, I was talking to a fellow yesterday in Sydney by phone who, he doesn't have that scientific background and he was struggling to understand it, so I slowed down. He bought my book. He's going to step through it and educate himself what this is all about.
You know, when I meet somebody who does not look their age, I usually compliment them. My standard response is, man, whatever you're drinking, keep drinking it. You know, but in your case, it's a literal.
Well, this is the herbal tea I was talking about.
Yeah, which you're drinking it right in front of me. Yeah,
no. The thing is, it's not a quick fix and it's not a temporary fix. It becomes a new lifestyle. Now, if someone doesn't want to do that, that's their choice, and I accept that. I don't endorse it because I think it's not the way to go, but I accept it. It's, your body, your choice. But once I got on to this healthy way of living, I mean, super healthy, where I don't eat junk food, I don't eat sugar, I don't drink alcohol. I used to have all of that. In fact, at one point I was drinking excessively, but then I quit all that to fix myself up, and I'll never go back to that because my health is so good. Why would I want to regress? And anyway, I enjoy the food and the lifestyle and the drinks that I've got now. I enjoy being healthy. I was with a friend yesterday who was drinking beer after beer after beer, and that's okay. He's a lovely guy, good friend. And he said, you should have a beer. I went, I don't need it. I'm happy. I love my life. I'm joyful. Every day, every moment is great. And he said, all right, fair enough. Maybe you could be happier. I said, I don't know if I could be happier than I am. I mean it, really. I've got, so much to live for and so many wonderful friends, and I love what I do, and I love helping people. I'm just doing a lot of mentoring of people with cancer, including some people in the States by Zoom and Skype and what have you, and phone calls and emails. That I love that. It's wonderful to help other people. In fact, I've shifted from thinking me, give me, to giving. How can I give more to people and to humanity? It's a change of thinking.
Oh, wonderful. You mentioned something off camera that I wanted to pull on that thread a little bit. So you told me that not only are you cured of your cancer, but now you didn't use the word immune, but you said you cannot get it again. Could you?
Correct. I believe I am not in remission. You see, remission is a word used by the medical profession to say, well, we've temporarily either removed this tumor or we've halted its growth or something. But you're going to need to get regular checkups, probably for the rest of your life, just to make sure it hasn't come back. And people will buy into that because for some people, it's all they know. And they might live in fear that this thing could come back. And often it does come back. Because I believe the slash, burn and poison does not cure the disease. It just treats the symptoms temporarily. And there's a good chance it can come back. Whereas what I did was to deal with the root cause, which a significant part of it is poor gut health. And I fixed that. And if you look at my diet now, some people are surprised. They're saying, don't you eat ice cream and cookies, as you call them in the States? We call them biscuits. And we call them soft drinks. You call them soda. It's like, no, I don't. Instead of soda, I'll have kombucha. And instead of, instead of candy, I'll have coconut flesh. And they go, wow, can you really eat that? Can you? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm used to that. I love coconuts.
Yeah. So you're talking about a genuine, sincere lifestyle change.
It's a lifestyle change. And so I'm not in remission. I do believe that it will not and cannot come back because my body doesn't have what's called the terrain or the environment. There's a French microbiologist of the 1850s who called it the terrain, the inner terrain. Once your inner terrain is clean and, as I said before, firing on all cylinders, cancer's got no environment to breed in. And there was an Italian doctor called Tullio Simoncini, who's now in his 70s, but about, I think, 15 years ago, came up with a theory. He's an oncologist who's operating on cancer patients and removing tumors. And after he'd removed hundreds of tumors, he started to think outside the square and think, all the tumors that I've removed are white. Why are they white? And he started thinking, well, fungus is white. Maybe cancer is a fungal infection. So he took samples of people's tumors and looked at the cancer cells under a microscope and came to the conclusion that they looked to him very much, possibly identical to fungal cells. And so he wrote a book, Cancer is a Fungal Infection. And going back to his discovery, he operated on a particular woman in Italy who had, I think it was ovarian cancer. I might be wrong, but I think it was ovarian. But he found he couldn't operate because it was too close to vital organs. So he stitched her up and told her that and said, I'm sorry, I just couldn't operate. And she was rather distressed and said, well, what's the alternative? Can we do chemotherapy? He said, no, it doesn't work for this particular type of cancer. He said, however, I have a theory that cancer is a fungal infection and there is a substance. Start again. Cancer is a fungal infection and the fungus thrives in an acidic environment and it cannot survive in an alkaline environment. And for anyone that knows chemistry, alkaline means a high pH and acidic means a low pH. And even if you don't know chemistry, you get the idea. It thrives in an acidic environment. So he said, we have to make your digestive system, your gut, alkaline, and also your blood. And he said, the fastest and most powerful way to do that, that's still safe and won't endanger your health, is to inject you with a solution of sodium bicarbonate. And so she agreed and said, well, that's my only option, my only reasonable option, let's do it. So he did it, and it worked. Not immediately. It started to shrink immediately, but it took about a month for it to disappear completely. So then he did it on another patient and another and another, and it worked most of the time. Not 100%, but most of the time. And then the Italian Medical Board got wind of what he was doing and said, you can't do this. This is not an approved protocol. So they took him to the tribunal, which did an investigation and eventually deregistered him from the medical profession in Italy. So he relocated to the UK, United Kingdom. And this time, he made a mistake. He didn't seek approval in Italy, and he really should have. So this time, he sought approval from the UK medical governing bodies. And they said, all right, we're willing for you to do it on a trial basis. So I'm not sure where it's at now in 2022, but I know at one point he was doing it on a trial basis, and again, having tremendous success. Now, in my case, my mentor, Pete Milov, said to me, you don't need to inject it. You can drink a solution of sodium bicarbonate, which, by the way, is baking soda, which you can get from your supermarket. I'm sure it's available everywhere in the world. It's just baking soda. You want to make sure it doesn't have aluminium in it, which it used to have. And you can drink it in a solution in the morning and a solution in the afternoon. Now, you asked me a bit earlier, how quickly did I feel or notice a difference, an improvement? As soon as I started drinking the sodium bicarbonate, I found a difference. I felt a difference within 48 hours. I could feel. I just felt. I'm very in touch with the feelings of my body, and particularly when you're very ill and in a lot of pain, I could feel that a lot of that pain and discomfort was diminishing. It wasn't gone, but was diminishing. And not all the time, because it sort of come and go, because it takes a committed, holistic approach to really get on top of this thing.
Yeah, I got a truckload of baking soda and my back room there as part of my prepping. Right, so I might have to take a look at that. So I wanted to ask you: is there an age? Is there a point of diminishing returns with this when you get to a certain age? Is there a point if someone's say 80 years old? Would these protocols be less effective for them?
Okay, I can't give a definitive answer because that would take widespread, extensive research. However, let me be specific. Just recently, we're talking about a couple of weeks ago, I was mentoring an 81-year-old man here in Sydney of Serbian descent, which is irrelevant to my story, but just to add some detail. He lives about 10 minutes drive from where I live. So I went around there, and he was suffering from esophageal cancer, which I think is here. And it was pretty bad that at one point he couldn't swallow and he was throwing up blood, which is disgusting. And the doctors had recommended radiotherapy, but he and his wife had decided to not do that immediately. And then his wife had heard about my book through a friend of a friend. She'd read my book cover to cover. She loved it. She said it correlated with a lot of things that she'd suspected over the years, but it joined the dots. It connected a lot of the dots together. So he didn't read it, but she did. And she said to him, darling, I think this is the way to go. Let's try it. And he said, all right, well, I trust you. I love you. Let's try it. So they called me and I said, listen, why don't I come around and I'll step you through this. So I did. I went to their fridge and I said, well, you can't eat this, 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 and this. And they looked a little bit shocked. I said, well, it's in my book. This is going to promote an acidic environment. It's going to promote the cancer. So they said, okay, we can cut it out. We trust you. We'll do whatever you say. And then I said, however, and I took a box around. I said, you can eat all this stuff, broccoli, onions, turmeric, ginger, garlic. I said, this is what you can be eating. And I explained to them ways they can make it tasty and enjoyable. Because you want to be able to enjoy your food. It shouldn't be torture or a punishment. And then we talked about the emotional dimensions. I actually went around there, I think, 3 times. And each time I went into different dimensions of what they needed to do. And he followed to the letter because she was cracking the whip in a good way.
Yeah,
she's a strong lady. She's really good. She's originally from that part of the world too, European, Eastern Europe, I think, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So within a few days, he said he'd stopped throwing up blood within about 2 or 3 days. which was bloody good. What else? He was able to swallow. At one point, he couldn't swallow. He said, I can swallow again. I don't need to just eat liquid foods. I can actually swallow with no pain at all. That was after about a week. So this stuff happens pretty quickly when your body goes into healing mode. I also recommended exercise. The best he could do was walking, not even power walking first. Then he stepped it up into power walking, different things. Earthing your body, which just means barefoot on soil or grass or sand. Then what was the next thing? When I first met them, he was so lethargic, so low in energy. He said it was hard to even get off the couch, but he got off the couch for me and sat up at the table. After about maybe 2.5 weeks, he was really getting his energy back, but like me, more energy than he'd ever experienced. So you asked about someone in their 80s. I know you're just being hypothetical, but there's an 81-year-old guy, and I was working for him. Look, I can't make a pronouncement for every person.
Sure.
Everyone's a bit different. And some people, I mean, he was really, really committed to it. He was going the full hog, and he kept adding on more protocols. He wouldn't just be complacent and say, well, that's probably enough. He and his wife, particularly his wife, would say, what's next? What are we not doing? I'd say, well, go to the book. I'd send them text messages. Go to page 187. There's some ideas for you. Oh, we're not doing that. Okay, we'll do that too.
Well, I would assume that once someone starts a protocol that shows results, they'd be naturally motivated to look for the next one.
Yes.
And the next one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct. Once you see results, the skepticism starts to go out the window.
Well, yeah, and you just, look, I know a few years ago, I said, I've got to start losing some weight. So I cut out the sugar, and I had a better breakfast. Instead of my donut for breakfast, I had my hard-boiled egg, a couple of hard-boiled, and I would start walking, and I'd do my usual, and I would record it. And within 3 months, I'd lost 35 pounds. And so, the first couple of weeks, it was an issue of discipline. I had to make myself do it. But after a couple of weeks, I look forward to that walk. I look forward to doing it. So, the hard part, I think, in these kind of protocols is the early going, is the first step. And then once you get going, you're going to be looking forward to all the things that you're doing.
Correct. You've got to overcome that inertia. In my case, I wasn't trying to lose weight, even though I was overweight. I was trying to recover. But in the process of following these healing protocols, I lost 30 kilograms, and I just did a quick Google search. That's 66 pounds in your language. So I went from being moderately obese to quite slim. And that does wonders for your self-esteem. And that was an unexpected benefit. My book makes it quite clear. I'm not prescribing. I'm not taking responsibility. I'm just basically telling my story. And I learned what I needed to learn to heal myself. But I'm sharing a story, and then people can use it as a springboard to go and do their own research, rather than me saying you need to do A, B, C, D.
Okay, so is there a specific message you would like to leave my audience with? If you could summarize the most powerful message you could give to people, what would it be?
Sure. Number one, the human body, I believe, is an extraordinary self-healing organism beyond what we've ever been led to believe, if you give it the right support, which is what my book's all about. You can't just think, oh, my body's going to heal itself. Oh, I don't have to do anything. Not true at all. That's like a high school student think, oh, my brain has got remarkable potential to succeed in my studies. Oh, I can just sit back and chill out. No, you're going to have to do the right things and put probably a lot of effort into achieving that result, but it can be done. I had to work very hard to achieve it. But I'd say for anyone with cancer, my book gives massive, massive hope. It's not prescriptive, but it spells out very clearly. It's 263 pages long, and it spells out very specifically and clearly what I did, which you can either follow some of it to the letter, you can use your own judgment, reach your own decisions, or use it as a springboard for your own research. But it will draw to your attention many things that you probably, in fact, almost certainly were not aware of. And I'm pleased to say I now have distribution in the United States. So I've got distribution in the United States, United Kingdom, Europe, and Australia. That's as far as it's got so far, but that's a fair part of the world.
If someone wanted to reach out to you, do you offer consulting services for people?
Yes, I do. Yes, okay. Yes. By phone call or Skype or Zoom. Probably Zoom more than Skype, but okay. Same thing. Yes, I do.
So So what's the most efficient way for someone anywhere in the world to reach out to you?
Probably to go to my website, which is healingpowerofcancer.com, where you can go to the contact form, send me a message. You can give your phone number or whatever you want to do, email address, and then we can communicate in whatever way is appropriate. The same websites where you can buy my book.
Okay. And the name of your book again is, can you hold it up for us again?
The Healing Power of Cancer. So the website is the same name except without the. So the website is Healing Power of Cancer. The book is The Healing Power of Cancer.
Okay. Excellent. Well, Rob, this has been fascinating. I really enjoyed it. But after I edited it a little bit, I'm going to watch this a couple of times again. This is a fascinating interview. Thank you so much for agreeing to be on the Hey Ed channel.
It's a pleasure, Ed. You're a great guy. You make me feel very comfortable to answer this stuff. And might I say, this is not the end. This is just the beginning.
So that's it for today. Edward Anderson, along with my guest Rob Pryor in Australia, signing out.
Copy that.